Hey guys, it's Kiss and welcome back to my channel where we talk about anything and everything horror, the good, the bad, and the gory. I recently played the Mortuary Assistant, and when I say played, I mean I played until I got every single ending. So if you want to see the gameplay, head on over to my gaming channel. I did post the full video and the endings there. Just click on the link down below in the description. Now we are going to be talking about this game in extreme detail, so this is your spoiler warning. So sit back, relax, grab your snacks, and let's talk about the Mortuary Assistant. The Mortuary Assistant was developed by Darkstone Digital and published by Dread XP. We play as Rebecca Owens, a young woman who is haunted by her past and who can't seem to let it go. At the start of the game, we are treated to a cutscene with Rebecca and her grandmother saying how proud of her she is, but concerned that she might leave her. But she ends up just as worried when Rebecca tells her she will be working for her old teacher, Mr. Delver, at River Fields. Its reputation clearly precedes it. Rebecca's grandma then gives her a present, a necklace in fact, and Rebecca does not want to take it, which we find out a bit more on that later. Is that going to protect me?
I want that. Just take it, please.
I don't know if I want that, me either.
Anyway.
Rebecca then informs her grandma that she's already begun working for Mr. Delver for a couple weeks now. Thanks for telling us, Rebecca. When we get to our place of employment, Mr. Delver is waiting for us. He asks us to put away Mr. Dalton and grab Mrs. Page, and we are given our first crash course in embalming. Basic steps as follows: record any identifying marks, make our report, print, and put on our chart wall. Wire the corpse's jaw shut, put in some eye caps to keep the eyes closed, mix our embalming fluids, drain the blood and replace with said fluid, fill the body cavity, clean the machine, and moisturize our corpse. Even the dead need to keep hydrated. As we moisturize Mrs. Page's face with our wet wipe, she starts to deteriorate right before our eyes. Mr. Delver gets super weird and upset and ends up sending us home. Back at our place, we are having a complete meltdown over it with our friend over the phone. Thankfully, Mr. Delver calls and puts our mind at ease, telling us he finalized our paperwork and if we can come in as 3 new cadavers have come in. Eager to work, we jump at the opportunity and head on in. That was our first mistake. When we arrive at Riverfields, things immediately take a turn for the worse when someone appears at the door. Also, I'm just going to show this clip where I completely missed that someone was at the door for like 5 seconds, so just enjoy that. I guess we don't really need that right now. What was that? Who was that? Where was that? Okay. But it turns out to be none other than Mr. Delver himself who has locked us in. He informs us that a demon has bound itself to us and we need to work out what demon has made its appearance, find sigils the demon has hidden, figure out its name, bind the demon to its vessel, and then burn the body. Simple enough. Every shift you start with 3 cadavers. We must process the bodies as normal while also adding a reagent to the embalming fluid to bind the demon to its vessel. The more we progress, the more the demon makes itself known and the more it gets its claws into you. Its ultimate goal is to possess you.
Maybe... No.
The only way to know how far along your possession is the scribble on a notepad. As long as the scribble is just scribble, we are fine. The more possessed you become, the scribbles will start to form a picture. Once that picture is formed, you're pretty much done for.
The door's open.
Oh, fuck. The demon, according to Mr. Delver, will use the worst parts of herself to weaken our resolve and eventually let the demon in, and boy do we have a pass for the demon to use. Now, in order to fully understand Rebecca's past and the full story of the game, you have to play through multiple times with multiple endings, which there are a total of 5, and a few secret ones. Throughout our playthroughs, we come to find out that Rebecca comes from a family of addicts. Our mom overdosed when she was very young, and we are led to believe that she may have been the one to find her mom's body. Not only that, if you search Rebecca's home before going to your shift, we find a 5-year sobriety chip that belonged to her father, and a 10-year sobriety chip for ourselves. So not only were our parents addicts, but at some point we followed both their footsteps and became one as well.
She has a drug problem.
This is how we learned that the necklace our grandmother gave us actually belonged to our father, which we can assume he is no longer alive. Quick side note, the sobriety chips and the necklace are key in one of the endings to the game. In another hallucination, courtesy of our friend the demon, we learned that Rebecca inadvertently caused the death of her father. While on a bender, Rebecca goes missing and is found by her dad in a ravine on a rainy night. In attempting to help her, he slips, hits his head, and falls off the cliff to his death. No wonder Rebecca is a wreck. In fact, this chain of events that led to her father's death end up with Rebecca going to an asylum for depression, where she tries to kill herself by hanging and by slitting her wrist, but she survives. Fuck.
You should have died when you had the chance.
Now, if you're anything like me and like to get all of the endings of games, you will discover a dark secret about Riverfields and Mr. Delver. At the beginning of your shift, you can find an old key which will lead to some important paranormal scenes. This will lead you to a bunker of sorts where there are a bunch of statues that have a combination that are etched into their foreheads. This combination will allow you to find a key to the basement that Mr. Delver doesn't let anyone in. And then before you burn the correct vessel, that's important. You have to burn the right vessel to get this ending. You can go into the basement to find some tapes and some journals where we find out that at one point Mr. Delver was close to becoming possessed himself. As you go deeper into the basement, we find a coffin, and in this coffin is Valerie. Valerie is a former employee who couldn't cut it and became possessed, and by the looks of it, Mr. Delver has been draining her blood, which also happens to be the reagent that we have been adding to the embalming fluid.
Don't you hear me?
As I said before, there are multiple endings to this game, and they do depend on certain items you start with or get in the game. We have a bad ending where we burn the wrong body and become possessed, finding ourselves locked in a coffin by Mr. Delver, presumably to bottle your possessed blood for more reagent like he was doing with Valerie. Another bad ending is if at some point you either burn the wrong body or put the wrong name on the mark, you will end up in the morning with Mr. Delver going on and on about how you are the only one to survive. But it quickly becomes apparent that we are no longer Rebecca, and we get our revenge on Mr. Delver for stopping us for so many years. But don't worry, there are a couple good endings. The first time you get everything right, it ends with Mr. Delver talking to us about how this will never end, and it will follow us no matter where we go, and we have to make a choice. The second good ending is very similar, just slightly different dialogue of Rebecca coming to terms that this is her life now and her only way of having some kind of life. The third goodish ending, and I say that because it's not great, but it's not like bad either, is where we discover the basement of horrors, and we talk about how awful it is and what a bad man Mr. Delver is. He explains that this is the only way to save more people. He'd rather keep one bad thing in his basement, using it to make sure it doesn't happen to anyone else. He also tells us that we are the first to survive other than himself. Everyone else has died, meaning there were more employees that he has killed and drained to stay alive. Looking back on these scenes, it becomes pretty apparent that at some point Valerie is going to die, and they're going to need a way to get more blood. So I'll just leave you with that thought.
I've watched them degrade and
Oh
suffer
my God.
until they're no longer themselves.
Whew, there was a lot happening in this game. Lots of twists and turns, and now we are going to rate it in 4 categories: gore, jump scares, story, and the voice acting. So we're going to start with gore in this one, since this game is about dead bodies. Really, I think that's enough said. We are playing a game where our job is to prepare cadavers. So there's like bodies everywhere, embalming, cutting them open, wiring their jaws. Even our hallucinations, we have some gore, like our dad dying, the bloody waterfalls. I like that the gore stayed where it needed to be, and it wasn't like super over the top either, because let's face it, even in horror, sometimes too much is too much. We're going to rate gore 9 out of 10. And the voice acting. I really wanted to throw this in here for the ratings because I think voice acting is really important in any game, especially in horror. You can have a great story but crappy voice acting that will completely ruin the immersion. Now we are rating the 2 actors that are in the game the most, which is Rebecca, played by Melissa Medina, and Raymond Delver, who is played by Adam Bennett. A huge shout out to Autumn Ivy and Eileen Anglin, who did the demons' voices. Super creepy, loved it, scared the crap out of me. Melissa Medina just absolutely nailed this role. The scenes where Rebecca is confronted by her past, leaving her crying on the ground, really raw. And the closure ending where she speaks with her dad absolutely broke my heart. Adam Bennett did incredible as Mr. Delver. He played a man just trying to get by day to day in extraordinary circumstances when all odds are against him. You could hear it in his voice in the different endings talking to Rebecca how tired he was. But he kept on going, his will to survive being stronger than anything else. All the voice actors were amazing, but these 2 were just stunning. We are going to give it a 10 out of 10.
Who knows what's coming tonight?
We're going to talk about jump scares last, so let's rate the story next. The Mortuary Assistant had a great non-linear story with multiple layers that you had to peel away to get the full picture. It started as just some demons haunting this morgue, to Rebecca confronting her past and her struggle with addiction and depression, to Mr. Delver holding possessed ex-workers hostage and bleeding them to kill its friends. A lot of different parts making up this beautiful, grotesque machine. My only complaint is that I wanted more. Maybe a sequel going back to how this all started? Just an idea for the devs. We're going to give this story a 10 out of 10. I wanted to talk about the jump scares last because I think all in all the jump scares are what made this game, and not in a, well, of course jump scares made the horror game in a horror kind of way. One of the biggest reasons this game is so incredible is that you get a different play every time. I played this game through about 7 times to make sure I got all the story and all the endings, and I got a different experience every single time. It's not predictable. You're not going to get the same jump scares at every point, and nor will you get the same story pieces every playthrough. To be honest, I had to do one last playthrough to get some footage I missed, and I was so confident that I had seen every jump scare the game had to offer. Nope, still shit my pants when Cabinet Man made an appearance. The one thing I find with games like this is I get bored because I expect what's coming, and it's one of the reasons I struggle to like Phasmophobia and Ghost Watchers and even at times Demonologist. Don't get me wrong, I love them, but they get really predictable. This game kept me on my toes, lured me into thinking I'd seen it all and I was safe, and then scared me even more. Jumpscares get a 10 out of 10. That being said, if you're looking for a game to scare the absolute daylights out of you, this is the one for you. We are going to rate the Mortuary Assistant a 4.5 out of 5 kisses. That's it for me. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you guys had as much fun as I did. To stay up to date with our game and movie reviews, make sure that you like and subscribe. If you guys have any good horror game suggestions, please make sure you comment them down below. I'm looking for the next great horror game to scare the pants off me. See you guys next time.